Greetings everyone. Welcome to Volume 10 of the DC Current. I'm your host, Damon Caskey. It is 2015, 10/10, 15 hours, and just about 20 minutes on the dot here on an absolutely just beautiful, beautiful sunny breezy day in the backlot of Caskey's Incorporated in Moorhead, Kentucky. Today I'm switching gears just a little bit. I'm going to roll my Fix-It series into the regular DC Current, but I'll still keep them on separate playlists for searchability. But the Fix-It, the important topic that we're going to tackle, is a problem that General Motors CK series vehicles, or Avalanche, or Sierra, Tahoe, Suburban, pretty much anything on their K platform from 1986 up to the present day have probably had to deal with before, and that is a faulty evaporative purge valve solenoid. Now, in case you're not aware of what this guy is or does, I'll give a quick explanation. This opening is mounted to a hose that leads directly to the fuel tank. The smaller cylinder contains a valve solenoid that gives it its namesake, that is operated by the ECM, and then you've got a canister filter that actually contains carbon and some cotton and just more or less a typical filter system. What happens is, when you start the vehicle, the ECM, engine computer if you will, sends a control signal to this solenoid that opens the valve. Vapors that have been building up in your fuel tank overnight or all day or however long are allowed to escape through this carbon filter into the atmosphere nice and clean. In other words, it's just part of the emissions control system. Here's the problem. This part, if it looks delicate, that's because it is. It's poorly engineered and not manufactured to any particular standards. And like any electronic part, it's sensitive to the elements. If you're guessing that it's mounted close to the fuel tank, you're again right. It is, in most cases, exposing it to a lot of vibration, a lot of elements, a lot of wear and tear in general. What you get out of that particular equation is a delicate part in a rough environment equals a lot of failure. And when that happens, the ECM will pick up the fault in the solenoid, illuminate the check engine light, and you're off to the dealership for a bill ranging from $300 to $500. Not good. However, I'm going to show you how to cut that bill down to about 30 minutes of your time and $30 to $40. If that sounds like a better deal, follow along with me and I'll walk you step by step from check engine light to cleared codes and ready to drive. Well, here we are, turning our key, and the first thing we get presented with is that annoying check engine light. There's nothing to do now but diagnose and find out exactly what the problem is. So what we're going to do is plug our handy-dandy ECM reader in underneath the dashboard and find out what the vehicle itself has to say on the subject. And there are two fault codes recorded. Both are P0449, the evaporative purge valve solenoid. Now obviously before we start work, we want to take an observational look underneath the vehicle to see what we're up against. In most cases, the purge valve solenoid is going to be located in close proximity to the fuel tank. Very rarely it will be mounted underneath the hood. Now in this particular vehicle, a Z7105 Avalanche, it is mounted directly above the rear differential. Now in a lot of cases you're going to have to remove the spare tire, but in our case it's not necessary at all and we can slide ourselves underneath and get right to work. Here we are underneath the truck, and just to kind of give you an idea, you can see that I'm right underneath the exhaust system, which means I'm on the passenger side, just underneath the suspension. Now what I've done is more or less just slid myself underneath the truck from the rear, underneath the axle along the passenger side, and obviously I'd recommend some blocks for safety and chucking the wheels. I kind of haven't done either one of those things, but again, do as I say, not as I do. Now, here's the old evaporation purge valve solenoid. There's a small canister here. The step motor, which is our faulty part, is right here, but it's all a singular unit. And what actually happens is, when starting the engine, you'll get a control signal from the computer that purges vapors that have been building up from the fuel tank out through this filter canister. And once this solenoid goes faulty, which it's going to be pretty prone to do, seeing as how we're under here exposed to the elements, we get a fault code and the annoying check engine light. So one thing I want to make sure to do, so we've got our vent hose coming from the differential. We don't want to mess with it. But the purge valve solenoid is not really much of a problem to remove. First thing is we want to remove the electrical connection. It's a ground side control switch, but all you really have to know is just to slide your slide your forefinger to loosen the electrical connection, pull it out, move it to the side. We don't want to crimp it too much, or else we'll wind up with a voltage fault and start right back where, and be right back where we started. The purge valve assembly itself is actually on a slide mount. There are no clips or fasteners. All you really have to do is slide it towards the rear of the vehicle, and there you go, it's loose. Now comes the real bear, is this hose clamp mechanism. Now this guy here can only be removed by pinching and pinching and pinching some more. Something that I cannot do with my left hand, and certainly cannot do while holding the camera. So we'll pause and come back with the hose clamp removed. And again, if you're under here instead of me, just pinch for all your life's worth and pull the assembly loose. Okay, I have just successfully removed the hose from the evac solenoid assembly. And there we are. There is our old and faulty part. So we'll just kind of chuck that aside. One little hiccup though, silly me, I forgot to bring the new part down here with us. So we'll have to pause once again while I slide back up and out from underneath the vehicle and grab the new part. And here we are with the new part. Well, let's crawl back up under here, install it, and that should be all. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is place our hose assembly in. And once again, I'm going to need both of my hands, so we'll pause just a moment. Well, actually, I'll try laying the camera on my chest just to see if we can get kind of a view of what's going on. Maybe we'll try this. Just going to try and sit the camera, balance it on the drive shaft here. Okay. What I'm doing at this point is just getting a feel for how the hose is going to be mounted. And now that I see where it's going to be, just basically push this in, twist it a little bit, and it clamps. And believe me, that thing is on there. You're going to either need some pliers or an amazing grip to pinch it loose. The next step is I'm going to slide it back onto its mount here. And I probably should have dabbed a little grease up underneath there, but there's some left over from the original mount, so I think we should be okay. Make sure the electrical connection is well clamped, up and out of the way. Also want to make sure that I didn't get the differential casing vent loose. So check it. And while we're under here, just kind of have a quick look around at all of our clamps and hoses. Everything looks good and solid. So our last step is we're going to go back up to the underside of the vehicle, back up to the controls. We'll start the vehicle, and I don't believe this code will clear itself, so we'll clear the code and then we'll start it back again. And if the code doesn't return, then we know that we've done a successful repair job. Okay, let's start the vehicle and see what we get. Okay, the code has not cleared, but that's no real surprise. If it does clear, it usually takes 2 to 3 days, and I'm not really willing to wait for that, so what we'll do is we'll plug in our reader. We'll scan for codes. We should see the 449. There it is. We'll erase the codes Now, since the computer does a diagnosis on that purge valve as soon as you start the engine, we should know if we've done a successful repair job just by stopping and then restarting the engine. And our new purge valve has been successfully diagnosed. We are ready to drive and no more annoying check engine codes. Okay, so we finished up with the vehicle. We're all set and ready to rock, right? But there is one last step I want you to remember. Now, as I said in the intro, this is a part that is very delicate by nature, is poorly manufactured, and lives in a rough environment. Now, fortunately, and I cannot remember if I mentioned this or not, so at the risk of repeating myself, most manufacturers that sell in aftermarket venues like O'Reilly's, Advance, Napa, whatnot, do offer a lifetime warranty. Make sure your part is one that does. Then, all you need to do is hang on to the box, the core, and of course, the paperwork. That way, if something happens again, all you have to do is get a warranty swap and go through the steps that we talked about before, and you'll be all set again. Out nothing more than, say, 30 minutes of your time again. Now, I hope this video has proved to be useful to you. If it has, I would really appreciate a like or a subscription. And if there's anything that you would like me to cover, by all means, use my contact points. I'll throw them up on the screen. Send me a request, and I'll be glad to see what I can do for you. This is Damon Caskey signing out for the DC Current. Thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time.